Hello friends, and welcome to another video recording on guns. And today I decided to make a recording on HI-Point pistols. Yes, HI-Point pistols. I said that a little bit, I'm being a little facetious because in the world of guns, you all know that there are a lot of jokes about HI-Point guns, HI-Point pistols, simply because they're in the low end. The price wise, they're selling about $250. A lot of people might call this cheap gun, and also as you see that the overall design of it, especially the weight. I mean, 35 ounce, so it's a little more than 2 pounds, right? 35 pounds. So the overall weight, the design of it, the size of it is such that the jokes like you can use this to as a hammer to build your deck, or if you're being attacked, you can use it to kind of throw at the guy. You probably can crash his skull, things like that, jokes like that. Well, I personally disagree with all that. Excuse me. The fact is, yes, it's selling. The price point is about, give and take, $250, and it is, yes, on the low end, very affordable gun. Does that mean, would you call that cheap gun, or what it implies is a low quality gun? So let's first off, let's look at the features of it, the philosophy behind its design and manufacturing, and why it is coming at that affordable $250 price point. So first off, before I talk about that, I want a little bit of introduce the overall features, overall aspects and specs of the gun. The gun has as the polymer frame. It has this durable, kind of attractive, easy grip finish, and it has can you see that? I don't know. It has a kind of on-off easy thumb safety. You can do this easily, and it's plus P rated. It has it comes with pre-trigger lock, and like many other guns. And the lastly but not least is 100% American made. So those are kind of overall basic features of the gun, and you kind of just to give you physical dimensions of the gun. It is actually the barrel length is 4.5 inches, and overall length is 7.75 inch. Like I said, the weight is 35 ounce, and the frame, high impact polymer frame, finish is the black powder coating on it, and it has a 9-round capacity. This one is 45 ACP. It's actually, this model is 45 ACP JHP HI-Point. So and also the fully adjustable rear sight. So as you see, this is a single stack. Capacity is 9-round, 45 ACP. All right. Now let's talk about again overall design and design aspects of this gun. Let's delve a little bit into that. So let's talk about the action, the way HI-Point operates. It is a blowback gun. It is unlike many other semi-automatic firearms that use many different mechanisms, like for cycling the action. This is using the blowback action. So as far as the complexity of building this gun, or overall complexity of the internal mechanisms that making it work in relation to other actions, such as recoil action or gas-operated semi-automatic pistols. This is much more complex. Much less complex. It's much more straightforward, is what I'm trying to say. Much more straightforward. Well, that actually brings two important things. One is the price point. That's why because of the fact that the complexity is much less, that means therefore it's reducing the cost of manufacturing, and two, the operation consistency. There is a lot less likelihood of jamming or some component failures, things like that. So now we mentioned that it is actually, the way it's built and designed is less complex than the others. Let's talk about how the blowback operates. What is blowback operation versus gas operation versus recoil operation? So the typical thing about HIU-Point is it has excuse me unlocked breech. So let's talk about that. What does it mean? First off, what is breech? The breech is it would be a lot better, of course, if there was some kind of an engineering design or drawings to explain that. But imagine that the barrel and the back of the barrel. What's happening is right. The round is being extracted from the magazine and placed on the ramp. That's pushed up on the ramp to the breech, and through breech, which is connecting the chamber, it goes in the barrel. So the breech is that location right behind the barrel. That's what breech is. And what is unlocked breech? So after explaining that, the breech is its function of it, the way I have to explain that, how the blowback operates. So to explain that unlock breech. All right. First off, the unlock breech, bolt and slice do not lock to the barrel at the time of firing. Unlike the many other pistols that you all are aware and we like to shoot with. So it's not basically locking the bolt / slide. So slide obviously is being this for the physical action, the portion that goes back and forth during that cycle to complete the firing. And then there is bolt mechanism inside facilitating this process, this whole motion of back and forth after the firing, the instant of firing the gun. So this is basically this blowback breech is the essential point to delve into, to talk about, to be able to explain how the blowback works. So, like all semi-automatic firearms, blowback firearms use also the forces that are created by the burning gunpowder to cycle the action, back and forth action again. So when you fire a blowback operated firearm, the gas basically coming into place once the firing pin hit the round, right? And then there's an explosion, and then with that explosion, with that pressure, the bullet attached to the shell casing, right? It leaves the barrel. Now, with that explosion, an enormous amount of pressure is being created, and then with that, as the opposite force, physical force, it is pushing back, which causes the recoil, which actually moves the cycle, right? That's why they call it a cycle. The action is going back and forth. So gas pushes the bullet down the barrel. As the bullet moves forward, the bolt wants to open under gas pressure and move backward. So as the name implies, the bolt blows back, hence the name blowback operated. The bolt blows back under the pressure of the fired round. Blowback firearm bolts are heavy. This gun is heavy. That's one of the things people, kind of in a snobbish way, I call them gun snobs, talk about, hey, you can build your deck with that. That's heavy enough. That's like a hammer. Well, bolts are heavy in it to be able to facilitate in this kind of to work and to operate in this kind of environment. So, and along with that, there's a stiff recoil spring pressing against the bolt. However, the combination of a heavy bolt and stiff recoil spring causes the bolt to open slower. Why? Because this action, the slide part, is actually heavy, much heavier than many other pistols. Well, again, physics and mechanics, since this is the heavier item, to push it back, to move it, I mean, it takes more power, and it is slower. Because, when you push something big and heavy, you cannot push it as fast as something, you can push something a lot lighter, right? I mean, it takes more energy. So you kind of go slower. I mean, imagine like a semi-truck, and next to, waiting on the traffic lights, red lights, right? Next to a Ferrari, and, right, let's turn green. Which one's going to go faster, start? You know the answer. So it's the same principle. So heavy objects, it's hard to push the heavy objects. So after the pressure drops to a safe level, the pressure that occurred initially after the explosion, that drops to a safer level, then the bolt moves backward. Then what it does, when it does that, moves backward, extracts and ejects the case. So once the case ejects, the cycle is ready to start again. So this is the blowback option, blowback operation. This is how blowback operates. All right. So okay, what are the advantages? Why do we have that? Why do we have to talk about it? There are certain advantages. I just mentioned two of them. One is, again, I'm going to repeat, because of its relatively simpler design, that it is cheaper to manufacture. That's why it is the gun is selling at $250 price point. And the other one is overall consistency in shooting. Again, because of the fact that there is no lock-in between the bolt and barrel, there is nothing lock in the breech. Hence it's called unlocked breech. So there is less complexity in the physical components when you're firing this gun, which brings automatically higher consistency. I mean, you have much less chances here as far as having jammed and stuff like that. So they're simpler to design and cheaper to build. Those are the advantages. Gas or recoil operated firearms require a much more complex system to lock and unlock the bolt, and that comes at the expense of additional engineering. Blowback firearms are quite reliable because of the forcefulness of their ammunition. Feeding and extraction keeps them working consistently. Another big plus of blowback firearms is that they can cycle weaker kinds of ammunition as well, regardless of the pressure required to cycle, since they already operate at a higher pressure. So that's another advantage. So these are the advantages, the positive aspects of blowback. Let's talk about the challenges of it. What kind of challenges are there with this? Well, any design, any physical design, any mechanical design, any engineering design, there is no such thing as perfect, 100% theoretically perfect design, because any design, when you're involved with a design, whatever it is, whether it's a pistol, revolver, laptop, camera, software, whatever it is we're talking about, the design is driven by what is the purpose of it, and what is the optimum way to reach that purpose. And there is lots of factors. It is impossible to be able to put all the factors to make it such that that is something that does everything in the world under the sun and still effectively and efficiently working. There is no such thing. That's why every design has what is called the constraints. There's something called design constraints. And this is obviously not an exception to it. That's also the same principle applies. The design constraints principle applies to HI-Point. So what are those? After going over the positive characteristics of the blowback operating system, so let's look at the constraints or challenges. Let's put it this way. Since the blowback firearms do not have a mechanically locked breech, which we just mentioned, it's bringing in some kind of advantages. That is one thing. But blowback operating firearms usually have more recoil. You remember I mentioned earlier that has in it, in addition to a heavier bolt, has also stiff recoil spring. Heavier bolt, the way it's moving during the cycling process, and the recoil spring is stiff, those two things is causing a bigger recoil, more recoil. So that is one disadvantage. So that therefore the additional felt recoil occurs from the heavy bolt reciprocating back and forth. Naturally, since the bolts in blowback firearms weigh more, they're heavier, these firearms are usually heavier than their lock breech counterparts. So basically two disadvantages. One, it is heavier. Two, there's a higher, considerably higher actually, felt recoil. Now when you look at it, based on what I've just described, the way it operates, the blowback operation, let's look at that. Let's take a look at it a little more closely. If you notice, and if you compare this design, this appearance of it, with many other pistols, Glock, 6 Hour, Koenig, Smith & Wesson, Taurus, whatever, concealed carry size, compact, subcompact, full size. Look at this, and in your imagination, try to compare this. This looks different, right? It's because, again, the action part is bigger, longer, bigger and heavier. This heavy, the weight itself is contributing the way the blowback operates. So those two, I mean, this is the way you look at it. Is this for you, in your opinion, when you buy this, are you having a less of a gun? So how do you measure less of a gun, right? All right. I tried this obviously several times in the range, and I didn't feel any difference as far as my shooting accuracy at the distances and I typically do it various different distances. And well, I got to tell you this. In the range, they don't allow you to, for instance, put on your belt and on your hip holster and kind of having a fast draw, or kind of respond to various different situations. Like you could do those things in an open area, kind of 3-gun competition, all those kind of different setups where they're what do they call those pop-up targets and everything, and they allow you to do all those things. But in a range, you're not allowed to, right? So I was just doing my regular range type of shooting at the paper targets, various different distances, and I compared this, compared to other guns like I was shooting, and like the guns I just mentioned before, I didn't feel any less accuracy, any more problems. Didn't have any kind of ergonomic issues as far as overall ergonomics of it. Yes, I mentioned that it's heavier, but I don't care about that. I mean, it's fine. Okay, the fact you don't carry this gun. This is not for concealed carry. I got to give you this. This is not for concealed carry, and I never intended to say that. I never meant that this is a concealed carry type of gun. It's not. But on the other hand, I was curious. I was simply curious about HI-Point because of its, price point. It's like, what's going on with this gun? And I was doing some reading on that one, I mean, before I bought it, in HI-Point pistols and also HI-Point carbines. And the same thing, HI-Point carbines are coming at very affordable price points, and when you look at their performance, they're not necessarily bad. So basically, what's happening is the gun has, because again, like I mentioned, it has the simple way to design it. Its overall design is simpler. What is it? The minimalist design, let's call it. Doesn't mean the low quality design. Whatever the parts and components that this gun has, have this comparable quality with any other gun, fancier guns, more expensive guns. Obviously it doesn't have fancy features such as which one was it? My mechanic, I think. You can see the status, it's loaded or not. For instance, that's another feature. It's a fancy feature. Again, the operation-wise, gas operation or recoil operation, or striker fire type of operation like Glock has. Obviously it doesn't have anything like it. It doesn't have like Glock has, again, in those three-way safety, built-in safety mechanism. I mean, this is basically simple here. This one here, the thumb-operated, manual safety. So that's making it cheaper. So all those, the company, the HI-Point, when they built this, they basically saved effort, therefore money, on producing this. Again, the locking mechanism is not here, like all the other guns. Not having a locking mechanism is bringing considerable cost savings in production. So all these things, you put all those things together, that makes sense. Why this gun is $250 versus what is it? My concealed carry size 6-hour P290. I think I spent close to $800 on it. Or Glock Gen 4 Model 21. I think it was about $650, $700. Those guns versus this, $250. It is, by all means, I just want to kind of opine on this one now, confidently. By all means, this gun is not cheaper, in quote-unquote cheaper, does not imply like it has a lot less quality. It is because it has it doesn't have those fancy features those guns have. It doesn't have the mechanisms that I just described so far. And they didn't spend a lot of time and put effort in its design to make it lighter and smaller. So, that's why it is selling at this point. Can you get the job done when it comes to, let's say, for home defense purposes? I mean, can I, with this gun at my bedside, on my bedside, can I get the job done? Can I protect myself and my family? Most certainly. I have the same performance, same accuracy with this gun. I have no doubt about that. It is a good price point, and especially for those of you, if you're trying to save money, maybe this is going to be your first gun, and you don't want to spend something close to $1,000. You don't want to spend, a lot of money. I understand that's a very understandable cause. So then don't. Give it a shot. Buy that one. It is about $250. Take it to range. Do lots of shooting. Mine is, again, 45 ACP. You can find, obviously different calibers. You can find in 22. You can find in, I think, 44, 40. Yeah. Smaller calibers, and also those. So different calibers. So try, just do some shooting. Do some practice shooting. If you don't want to spend, if you don't want to shoot 45s because they're obviously relatively more expensive, then buy 22. For when I shoot 22s, I really don't even count. It's 22s economically, as you know, it's a lot more affordable. So buy that. So basically, with this gun at this price point, 22 caliber for instance, do lots of shooting. You can basically enjoy that a lot. So that was my point to describe HI-Point, because again, going back to what I was saying, in the gun parlane, there's a lot of gun snobs, and they're talking about they're looking down on it, and it's almost like if you have this on you on your belt, or maybe shoulder holster or whatever, it's kind of like some people. I mean, I even read like they even feel kind of embarrassed almost going to the range with this and pulling this out of their range bag and put it on the bench. And it's, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. These are the reasons why this gun is selling at $250 gun price point, and by all means, this is not a less of a quality. Again, one final thing: 100% American made.